Good evening, folks. Welcome back. It is the second video of the day because things develop pretty quickly in Scottish football. I'm joined by Declan and Kenny to discuss the fallout to all of today's news, reaction to Bolingoli's holiday trip, and the news that Celtic's next two Scottish Premiership games against St Mirren and Aberdeen have been postponed. Boys, the wonderful world of Scottish football. 24 hours is a long, long time. I was yesterday preparing for the game against St Mirren, looking forward to trying to put Sunday's result behind us. And Kenny, little did we know, even 24 hours ago, what was about to unfold.
No, I mean, this is humiliating for the club. If you think about the wider impacts on society, everybody's making sacrifices at the moment. Our fans are putting in £500 and £600 for season books when they can't even go to the ground. Not because they can afford it, but because they want to make a sacrifice to get the club over the line this season. And we've got a player who's earning more money in a week than a lot of our fans will earn in a year, flouting the law, lying to the club, and putting everybody's health at risk, and putting 10 years hard work on the line. Who does he think he is? It is absolutely flabbergasting that a human being can come to the conclusion that he's going to do that. To go to Spain overnight, between games, even if there wasn't a pandemic and it wasn't 10 in a row, would be ludicrous. What on earth is he doing? I don't think we want to sit here and character assassinate him for 20 minutes because it won't achieve anything other than get some stuff off our chest. Because there's a big fallout of this that we need to discuss and think about how things are going to go forward. But I think we're a bit lucky. I mean, every fan will be outraged, but Nicola Sturgeon was outraged. She could have went heavier this afternoon. She could have docked his points. She could have done anything because there's an axe hanging over us now at the highest office in the country. Fortunately, Jason Leach, the medical officer, seems quite measured and spoke quite measured about their approach, and it's a line in the sand and we carry on. But Celtic players are under a lot of mental duress now. You know, when they go out into the street, they're going to be panicking about, well, what if I'm seen without a mask? What if I'm the one that makes the whole thing collapse? It's a terrible situation brought on by one man and one man's idiocy. So there's going to be fallout of it that we're going to discuss. But yeah, we're all furious about this. It defies belief.
Aye, it does. It's unthinkable, really, and you can see, I don't think anybody's more frustrated or angry than Neil Lennon. You can see that in the press conference today. Declan, I want to try our best, as Kenny says there, not to rehash everything that's been spoke about today and try and look forward and see what the consequences of this are for us immediately and then going through this season. But the first thing is first, the most simple thing going forward. Brendan Quinn's asking, would love to hear all the guys' thoughts on a suitable punishment for Boli, and is there any way back for him? If not, and the club are looking to get rid, will there be any takers now? Well, I think it's the most simple question about how we go forward for here, Declan. I think it's unforgivable, and I think he's got to go.
I think personally, as Kerry touches on there, as supporters that are putting in a lot of money, I don't think anybody would want to see him back in a Celtic jersey for his pure selfish arrogance that he's shown towards the club, towards the managers and us as supporters that give so much for Celtic. And I've been looking, forward to trying to get back into the stadiums September, October time for this to put us backwards and for us to just kind of stall our season. After a disappointing performance on Sunday, we wanted to bounce back quick tomorrow night, which we're not going to get the opportunity to do. We've already got a fixture pile-up that is horrific, that is going to get worse. So to me, Michael Nicholson will sit down from the legality side of it and see that what they can do with his contract. I don't think Peter Lawwell will want him at the club, and I don't think Neil Lennon will want him around the dressing room for his sake as well and for the rest of the players' sake, because I think one of the biggest losers in this is our players and manager who have been humiliated by one of their teammates today, and it's unforgivable. And I don't personally want to ever see him back in a Celtic jersey again.
Aye, I think that about sums up the sentiment from everyone. Kenny, do you think, obviously you can tell that Neil Lennon, he wouldn't be drawn on whether his contract is going to get torn up or he's going to be sacked. That decision will be made by the board of directors, but you can't see any way back for him.
No, I think surely from an employment law point of view, we've got grounds to tear up his deal. If that's not gross conduct of the highest order, I don't know what is. Now, you could maybe economically, you could say, well, why tear up his deal? Because we paid $3 million for him, we'll sell him on. He's worth almost nothing, not just because of his incredulous stuff he's done off the park. He's been a nightmare on the park, let's be honest. He's been erratic since day one. He's ineffective going forward. He's not settled in. If you remember last season, actually, there was a period of time where it was a bit of an unexplained absence from him. And Neil Lennon said, he's trying to focus on his football. Something untoward went with him last season as well. This isn't the first time he's went a bit off the radar. So he doesn't have a transfer value. His deal needs to get torn up, and it needs to get torn up ASAP. And I don't think he needs to hang around Glasgow any longer than tonight or tomorrow, and we never see him again. I think it's that simple.
I think so. I think as soon as he comes out, I think he's 7 days of quarantine he's got left, and that's when the meeting will be. And I would expect the club to terminate his contract. But we'll wait and see what happens. Declan, the first thing coming forward from this is the fixture pile-up. You've mentioned it already. I think I read before the season started that there was only one free week when the SPFL and the SFA were trying to schedule fixtures. When you take into consideration they've cancelled the winter break, and the FIFA calendar dates are already set, so we don't have a lot of room to play with here. And in this season of all seasons, this has put undue pressure on the club and the team.
It has, because I imagine that any other season Champions League qualification will still be a priority. I know some people have said it's not important, but financially and for where we want to be as a club, it should be important. It's always a goal. So we want to be in Europe. I think we're very lucky that our game against KR Reykjavik looks as if it will go ahead. That was one of the first things I worried about, whether or not that game could have came into disrepute because of the conditions that had been set on Celtic today. But there's international breaks. It looks as if it'll be midweek, weekend. That will all be hard to cope with. Again, that will go back to the point of using our squad depth, which on Sunday didn't look great. So, that might wake a few people up at the club to look at our depth of squad. But, it's going to be a lot of games. It's going to be a long time through the season. Do I think we've got enough to get through that? I do. But it is going to be tricky, and it'll be a long road towards the 10.
Kenny, the next league game is away at Tannadice a week on Saturday. We could be 11 points behind whoever's top of the league at that time, and that's not the kind of start we wanted, as I say, to this season of all seasons.
No, let's not kid ourselves on that. That's a pretty worrying situation to be in. Fixture pile-ups, even the best sides, if they have a fixture pile-up, it affects them. If you think about our run to the UEFA Cup final in 2003, that were last in Sutton. That was one of the best teams we've ever had. They won nothing. They won nothing that season because of fixture backlog, because they're playing every Thursday. I believe that if we qualify for a group stage, which we're the most likely to in the country because we've got the Europa League parachute, it means that we go through in the League Cup. It means that we'll be 4 games behind people going into January, and that needs to get caught up through to the end of February, and we'll be playing twice a week. That's worrying. And if we're playing twice a week and we're 8, 9, 10 points behind, even if it's an artificial week because of games in hand, psychologically it gives our opponents a boost, and it puts us under pressure every time we go in the park. And this is all because of one man's unilateral decision to take the law into his own hands. And it's hard to put into words how angry that's going to make the support. But you know what? This is going to be a challenging season mentally and physically. It's just got quite a bit harder, I think. I don't think we should underestimate the severity of running that many games behind.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the ramifications of this going forward in terms of fixtures and pressure for the team, even if they have to play any sort of catch-up, as I say, it's just unnecessary. It's undue pressure that we didn't need at the beginning of this season. Declan, there's been predictable, unsavoury clamour for points deductions, coming from the same people who a few months ago were absolutely adamant that football can only be settled on the park, which I think is strange. But there probably will be some sort of implication for the club. I don't know if it will be a fine. I know Aberdeen haven't had any collective punishment yet. That will be up to the footballing authorities. What do you think that will look like?
I don't really know. The worry I've had and the question I've had is, why is Neil Doncaster or Rod Petrie at the beginning of this, when we knew football was coming back, not have clear sanctions in place? Because it would appear that the SPFL and the SFA don't have any clear sanctions of fines and have any way in which teams would be punished. I don't think the scattergun approach is the right way forward. People calling for points deductions is just a nonsense at this point in time. But I would imagine it's a fine. But again, though, what will that really achieve? Because is it going to achieve anything? I don't know personally, but I think a fine would be the way forward. But why was that not put in place? Because it just seems just now that the SFA and the SPFL don't have any idea of how they're going to punish clubs, which was odd. Why has football come back without that punishment being there in the first place?
Yeah. Kenny, it's difficult, isn't it? Because the club can't be responsible for monitoring one of their players 24 hours a day on their days off. That is the actions of an individual, but that makes it difficult for where do you place any blame or any sanction on the club for that, because it's a very difficult thing to do. And I think the two instances we've seen of protocol breaches so far with Aberdeen players and now with Bolingoli won't be the only two. It's just the only two that have made it into the public domain. So it's difficult to sort of pin blame on the club for a situation like this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, when they sat down after the Hamilton game and explained to them that they had a couple of days off, who in their right mind would have thought somebody would be boarding a flight to Spain to come back on Tuesday? I mean, it's one of the most outrageous, galling things I've ever... It defies belief that he did that. How can you legislate for that? Yeah. I think he just has to go. I do have faith that the club have approached all this in a professional way. That is just an outrageous thing that's happened. I think maybe drawing a harder line on the use of social media could help. I mean, Leigh Griffiths hasn't really brought very favourable attention to us over the last week from social media, and Lennon's been pretty outspoken about how disruptive he believes that is. So maybe they will change their protocol around that. But how you prevent one man jumping on a plane to go to Spain, short of locking everybody in the training complex permanently, I don't know. It's going to be, they're saying they're in a bubble and they basically just go to the shops, they train and they come home. That's very difficult for people to handle for 8 months. You have to give them a little bit of freedom to use their own judgment now and again. And the rules and regulations around COVID are hard to follow and they will be scared of breaking them. But I don't really know how much the club can be blamed for this. They deserve a fine, but they don't deserve anything more draconian than that.
It's a difficult situation. You touched on Leigh Griffiths there. I mentioned him in the video this morning about it. Declan, I think Neil Lennon has kind of cleared up today that the club had looked into whatever it was suggested Leigh Griffiths had maybe done wrong in terms of breaking quarantine rules. But Kenny's right in that Leigh Griffiths seems to just never be far away from this media circus of doing something wrong or being seen to do something wrong. And I think, okay, he's not done anything on the same level that Boli has here. But again, that undue pressure and attention brought to the club in this season is totally unnecessary. And I think there's a bare minimum expected of a professional footballer who gets paid an absolute fortune. And I think attitude and I think conducting yourself in a professional manner are that bare minimum. And I don't think Leigh Griffiths is quite there at the moment either.
No, these players are ambassadors for Celtic. They're ambassadors to young people to look up to these guys. I think if you look at a left-back position, especially before Bolingoli, we had Kieran Tierney and Emilio Izaguirre. They served the club really well, two great role models to young people, and the way they conducted themselves. And the actions of the current left-back are poor, and the actions of what would be our second-choice striker have been poor. We don't need attention like it. You know, he's been told, I'm sure, stay off social media. We saw Neil's frustration at that before, and then it comes again. We just don't need the attention of it. And I don't know why he keeps wanting to draw attention to himself. He should be getting his head down and looking to get back into our team, because we were screaming out for him on Sunday to come onto that park. He would have been a brilliant player to come onto the park. Whether it was a calf strain or not, I don't know. I'm not part of Celtic's medical team, but it would have been... we need a player who is committed to this, to go for this championship. This is one of the biggest seasons in Celtic history. If he is not in it, then he needs to go as well. And it's as simple as that. I said earlier about Bolingoli. Yes, Leigh Griffiths' situation isn't as bad. If he's not in it, though, for the long run, he needs to go.
Kenny, we've got a question in here. How come 1 minute Leigh Griffiths is injured and then the next he's overweight, and then he's prime fitness, but he can't even make the bench? That's something I mentioned this morning. It seems to be there's this cloud over Leigh Griffiths where he was overweight, so he got left behind, and then Neil Lennon told us 2 weeks later he was in the condition of his life, and then the next week he was out with a calf strain. It just doesn't all add up at the minute.
No, it doesn't. I'm sceptical of all of that as well. I think on the surf, though, on the face of it, looks like he's letting us down big time. And it's, even on Sunday, bringing him on, a fit and firing Leigh Griffiths, trying to break a deadlock with 20 minutes to go, that makes a difference. And he wasn't there. And we had to bring on a young guy who looked a bit uncomfortable, and we dropped 2 points. And if I'm Neil Lennon, and I think they're doing this anyway based on their transfer strategy, I would almost discount Griffiths. If Griffiths is fit and firing, he's a bonus. But he can't be relied upon. They need another striker so that they can partner Eddie in a 3-5-2 when they want to and bring somebody late on. But that's another byproduct of this. A Jetty, for example, how keen is he going to be coming to sign the deal now? He's going to think, well, Scottish football is just a house of cards. At any given moment, the whole season could be called because they're all over the place in terms of their protocol. I don't know if he's going to sign now. We've certainly be the deadline for the Champions League is tomorrow night at 11 p.m. I don't think he's going to be signing now in time for that. So that's another meaningful effect of this. But Griffiths, if I'm Lennon, I'm thinking, if he's fit, he's a bonus, but let's get someone else in.
I think you're right, mate. I think the implications are far and wide, and even the knock-on effect on someone like Ayeti, who is clearly in two minds about whether he wants to come here. There was stories that Neil Lennon has talked him in to the move, and it's still not happened yet. This is not going to do it any favours. Declan, another consequence, something that I thought this morning, is the knock-on effect on getting fans back into stadiums. Now, Nicola Sturgeon said today that she doesn't want the innocent to be punished for this, and I think she cited fans when she mentioned that. But Jason Leach said tonight that the provisional date, the 14th of September, for starting to introduce smaller capacity crowds and test events hasn't been derailed by this, but he said it hasn't been helped by it. So I think that's going to hurt that as well.
It will hurt it. It was still positive that he said he's got faith in the football clubs, he's got faith in the captains of the clubs and the managers after being in that Zoom call last night. So hopefully the confidence isn't completely broke down because of one person. For some of the ludicrous comments blaming Neil Lennon for today's actions, for giving the players 2 days off, was just a nonsense. But it won't help. But it'd be great to get fans back in stadiums. But as they've said, we need to get our house in order first, and that's only going to get done when they see that the players are sticking to the protocol, not breaking rules, and just getting on with it. And there's been other losers out of this, the other clubs. It was good to see Alec Dyer come out publicly today and say that he put to bed that stupid notion of points. If anybody could feel aggrieved, it was Kilmarnock, because we fielded a player who shouldn't have been on the pitch. And the reason why, I know people have been saying that Nicola Sturgeon has got an agenda against football fans for previous legislation that's been put through. The reason why Kilmarnock's able to play is due to the 15-minute close proximity rule. Just if anybody didn't know anything about that, it's because players aren't stationary. If they're on the pitch for more than 15 minutes, they're not stationary, and they should be social distancing whether in the stand or sitting on the bench. So that's why Kilmarnock can play. They think they're safe enough to play, because the tests only tell you on the day whether you've got coronavirus or not. Yeah. So you can still incubate the virus. 4 days on, it could be found that a Celtic does a positive test in our camp. That is why we are not playing for a week, because there is still that risk there that in this next week there could be a Celtic player get the virus, because Bolingoli has also broke the bubble that's been created at Celtic and Lennoxtown. That squad bubble that has been broken because he's been to Spain, he's mixed with other people, and he's brought that back, and that is very dangerous. So in our part, there is still a week here that could change other things. This might be not the only 2 games that are postponed for us.
Kenny, it's fair to say that footballers two game weeks into this Scottish season haven't covered themselves in glory. Do you have a gut feel about when we as supporters are going to be able to get back and see some sort of football?
I really don't. I'm glad to hear that they've not just outlawed this test event just because of the actions of one man. But if you think 60, we don't want to go back to Celtic Park with 12,000 people sparsely around the ground. It's better than nothing, but it's not the Celtic Park we know and love. When are we going to get 60,000 roaring down, supporting the side that we need? I really don't know. It might not be until there's a vaccine. There is the rumours around a vaccine stretch from December to never. What does that mean? Probably some point at the start of next year we'll have a vaccine and we'll have 60,000 fans back in. It would be good if we've got a sparse crowd maybe in October or November, but who knows? It's changing daily. But until we've got everything back with the 60,000 rolling, I don't think any of us are going to be entirely satisfied, and I just hope it's before the end of this season, because they're going to need it. We're going to need us now more than they did 48 hours ago.
We are absolutely going to need it, and I think we've seen evidence of that on Sunday as well. With the lack of urgency that crept in the second half, not having fans was very, very evident in that game against Kilmarnock. Declan, we've touched about the far-reaching negative consequences of this. I want to try and finish tonight on a positive. Do you think that the club, the manager, the team are going to find that extra bit of determination to bounce back for this really strong when they get back onto the pitch?
Neil Lennon's a strong figure, and I'm sure along with Scott Brown will be looking to try and get that squad together as one again. One player's let everybody down, and that's unfortunate. But the only way to get over that is to unite as one team, train hard up until next week, and try and bounce back from a disappointing result of the weekend to get a positive result against Reykjavik. But I think for what we've got at management and for what we've got as a captain, we should have enough to come together as a club. As long as, whatever happens with Bolingoli should not be anywhere near Lennoxtown, because that would just cause complete uproar in the squad, because he's let his teammates down. So I think for what we've got as as manager and captain, we've got enough to unite and bring everybody together as a close unit.
I think we're going to do it. Let's not overreact. We've got the best squad. We've got the best squad on the park. We've got the best winning mentality, and that hasn't changed overnight. We've made it a lot harder for ourselves, but let's keep it in perspective. I think we're going to do it.
Yeah,
that's the kind of positivity I'm looking for, mate. Do you think we can find an extra bit of motivation off the back of this, an extra push when we get back out onto the pitch next Saturday?
Well,
Sorry, Kenny, on you go.
Yeah, I mean, Jose Mourinho sort of made his career out of everyone's against us, and there's, we're going to win because everything's going against us. Things are starting to go against us now, so who knows? Maybe that will galvanise them in some way. I think they're strong in the mind, and Lennon is a good leader in the face of adversity. His whole life has been playing career was spent in the face of personal adversity, so he knows firsthand how to handle that situation, and I think he's the right man for it. I can see us bouncing back. Unfortunately, we're going to have to do that a few points behind, but that will catch up in the fullness of time, and I do believe we'll do it.
Absolutely, that's a great point to end on. I think we've got all the character there, as you say, the leadership to come through this and turn it into a positive, if you like. That's all we've got time for tonight. Like the video, comment with your own thoughts below. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll be back with some sort of video. It'll not be build up to any games at the weekend, but we will be back for a Reykjavik build up next week.